Welcome to the Bold and Determined Podcast with your man Victor Pride. And right here on the Podcast for Winners, we're bringing you motivation and mindset for the killers and real dealers, the makers and the takers, the winners and the grinners, and goddamn, even the sinners too. Let's get started. Well, hello, my friendly friends. Welcome back to another edition of the Bold and Determined Podcast with your man, Victor Pride. I tell you what, friends, if you enjoy the Bold and Determined Podcast, I want you to do this one favor for me right now. Pause the podcast, go to iTunes, leave a 5-star rating for the Bold and Determined Podcast. Do this so that other people can find this podcast and perhaps you can connect with them in the future. We are at 185 5-star reviews right now. We've got to get that over 250. So pause the show, go to iTunes, leave a 5-star rating for the Bold and Determined Podcast, and come back here. Okay, now that you're back, let's get started. As listeners of the show know, I eat a carnivore diet. I eat mostly meat, and I do that for a very specific reason. That reason is this. I try to eat in the most natural way as humanly possible. You know that I don't give a damn what scientific studies say. You know that I don't give a damn what the news says. You know that I don't give a damn what the government says is the best food to eat. I only give a damn what is natural and best for man. The best food, the most natural food for man is meat. Why is that? Because man is a hunter. Man is not a gatherer. Man is not a scavenger. Man is a hunter. This is our past, and this is in our blood. This is in our DNA. We are hunters. And what do hunters eat? They eat meat. So this is why I eat meat, is because it is the most natural and therefore the healthiest way for man to eat. There was a big find recently where they found some bones of Neanderthal man in France. The bones of the Neanderthal man in France showed that the Neanderthal man, the prehistoric man, was as carnivorous as a modern-day wolf. So we know that our direct ancestors ate as much meat in the past as a modern-day wolf eats today. Oh, what does that tell you, friends? It tells you that hunting is in our DNA. Eating meat is in our DNA. It's who we are. It's what we are meant to eat. And it becomes very obvious, very quickly. It's very clear when you start eating just meat or mostly meat that it is the only natural food for man. You start to understand that you get satiated when you eat meat. And when you eat carbohydrate foods or plant foods, you never get satiated. In fact, anytime you eat carbohydrate foods, it causes an insulin spike. What happens when your insulin spikes? Hunger increases. So every time you eat carbohydrate foods or plant foods like rice or beans, fruits, etc., you never get satiated. You always get hungrier. So you can never eat enough carbohydrate foods to get satisfied. This is plainly evident when you look at vegans. Watch a vegan video on YouTube. Every 2 hours they say, I'm starving, I'm so hungry, I'm starving. Of course you are. You're not feeding your body. Then you can watch a carnivore video on YouTube and you can see that they eat once or twice a day and they basically never feel hunger. That's the same way I am. I basically never feel hunger unless I have one of those cheat meals that I talk about. And when I have cheat meals, I have to fight the urge to not continue eating because the cheat meals do not satisfy whatsoever. It is only meat that satisfies man because man is a hunter, not a gatherer, not a scavenger. Man is a hunter. That is who you are. That is what you are. And the more you run away from nature, that does not change the fact that you need what you need to survive and thrive and be who you are. And we can tell very, very plainly, very obviously, just by looking at people in the world, they are not following their natural diet. They are not living their natural way. And therefore, they do not experience good health, abundant health, and vitality. And I tell you what, friends, it becomes self-evident. When you eat a carnivore diet, it becomes obvious and self-evident what the natural diet is. It becomes obvious who you are and what you are. Now, speaking of the carnivore diet, I get a lot of questions regarding carnivore diet and bodybuilding because even though it is our natural diet, we have all forgotten what we should and should not do. We no longer understand our bodies too well. So, when we go to a carnivore diet, I get a lot of questions like, I'm losing weight too fast. How do I gain weight on the carnivore diet? I'm losing strength in the gym. How can I fix this? I'm losing pumps in the gym on the carnivore diet. How can I fix this? So let's talk about the carnivore diet and bodybuilding. To understand the carnivore diet and bodybuilding, we have to go to bodybuilders of the past, such as Vince Gironda and Larry Scott. Larry Scott was the first ever Mr. Olympia. Larry Scott had a great, unbelievable physique. And Larry Scott's diet was mainly a carnivorous diet. He advocated always less than 50 grams of carbohydrate foods when trying to cut down and get lean for a show. But when trying to build muscle, he would include more of the carbohydrate foods, but with a catch. He would not eat so many plant foods. He would not eat so many plant carbohydrates. He would actually eat animal carbohydrates in the form of milk, cottage cheese, and things like this. So, if you are a bodybuilder on the carnivore diet and you're trying to gain weight, you're trying to gain strength in the gym, there's a couple things we need to look at. Number one, if we're talking about building muscle, then we want to add something more than just meat. We want to add something like heavy cream. Heavy cream is very high in calories, but very low in carbohydrates. It does have some carbs, but it's very low in carbs. And this is one of the favorite drinks of Larry Scott, the first ever Mr. Olympia. He was big on drinking heavy cream, even when he was cutting for his show, and he would eat cottage cheese, which has a certain amount of carbohydrates in it, and he would eat a few carbohydrates here and there. He would not go crazy on the carbs, even when he was trying to gain size. His trainer was a man named Vince Gironda, who had an unbelievable physique back in the 50s before people even knew what was what about bodybuilding. And Vince Gironda was famous for the steak and eggs diet. The steak and eggs diet is exactly what it sounds like. You eat nothing but steak and eggs. And every 3 to 5 days, Vince Gironda would have a carbohydrate refeed of, say, rice. So basically, Vince Gironda on his steak and eggs diet followed the exact same diet I follow today with my 2 cheat meals a week. And Vince Gironda stated that he reached his best definition of all time eating a steak and eggs diet with a carbohydrate refeed once every 3 to 5 days, depending on how he felt. And I do the same thing today, and I feel absolutely fantastic. But when it comes to building muscle, we need to have a caloric surplus. We need to eat enough calories. And when we're so used to eating carbohydrate foods in our modern world, they make such a large portion of our calorie content. And don't let the vegan propaganda fool you. Most people in America eat a plant-based diet already. Most people in America eat 70% carbohydrate foods or plant foods and only 30% animal foods. So it's not actually that animal product heavy. If you go to McDonald's, for example, you get a Coca-Cola, you get French fries, you get a cheeseburger. The only meat you're getting is on the cheeseburger. And, half that meat is probably soy today. Then you've got the bread, you got the potatoes, you've got the sugar and the soda. That's 70% plant foods. It's not a meat-heavy diet. It's a meat-light diet. So most people are already following a heavily plant-based diet. They just are. So when you cut out those plant-based calories, you cut out the bread, the soda, the rice, the fruits, the whatever, you have a big hole in your caloric intake. And I'll tell you what, friends, it's really, really difficult for us to eat a lot, to eat enough calories in just meat alone, because meat is so satiating. You eat it and then you get full, and you're full for 12 hours. Even 24 hours, you can be full. So it's very difficult. And a lot of bodybuilders, for example, who go to a carnivore diet, they experience a strength decrease in the short term. They experience less pumps in the short term. One reason for that is that they are taking in less calories than they were before. The remedy for that, we've got to look at Larry Scott. What did Larry Scott do? Larry Scott drank heavy cream. Heavy cream. That is going to be the carnivore bodybuilder's best friend. Unfortunately, in the United States, it's very difficult to get raw heavy cream. You can only get pasteurized heavy cream at the supermarket. Now, I've tasted pasteurized heavy cream and I've tasted raw cream. Let me tell you what, pasteurized heavy cream tastes like toilet water. It tastes terrible. It tastes off. It tastes sick. It tastes toxic. Raw cream is a dream. So if you have the means to get out to a farm, to get out to a dairy producer who will sell you raw cream, and you are on the carnivore diet, this is going to be my number one suggestion for gaining weight, for gaining muscle on the carnivore diet, raw heavy cream. Because meat is so filling, it's really, really difficult to eat enough meat to get enough calories to train as hard as you want. So I recommend adding in some heavy cream. Now, we can also look at the role of carbohydrates in bodybuilding. Do they have a role in bodybuilding? Yes, I do believe they have a role in bodybuilding. I do not believe they need to be eaten every day. In fact, I don't believe they need to be eaten ever. However, we're talking about body modification. Bodybuilding, what does that mean? It means that you are adding more size onto your frame than your body wants to naturally add. And the carnivore diet is not a weight loss diet. It is not a weight gain diet. It is a weight neutralizer or a weight naturalizer because it is the natural food your body wants to eat. When you eat the natural food your body wants to eat, it goes to its natural set point. And what do bodybuilders want? They want to be bigger than they should be. But when you eat a natural diet, how are you ever going to be bigger than you need to be? Or how are you going to be bigger than you should be when you eat a natural diet? That's the dilemma. And that is where carbohydrates may play a role. Now, regarding people who eat a natural diet, let's look at documentaries of tribal peoples in the world. Let's look at Australian Aboriginals. Let's look at tribal peoples in New Guinea. Let's look at tribal peoples off the coast of India. Let's look at tribal peoples in Africa. People who don't eat modern foods. They are hunters and they eat the natural foods. Whatever the jungle provides, that's what they eat. Anytime we watch these documentaries, what do we see? We see lean and muscular. We never see big people. We never see big and muscular tribal peoples. Now, as you know, the natural bodybuilder has two choices. The natural bodybuilder can either be lean and muscular and look a little bit skinny, or the natural bodybuilder can be big but bloofy and bloated, carrying water weight. The natural bodybuilder is not going to look like you see on the Mr. Olympia stage because they're using steroids or other bodybuilding supplements. The natural only has one of two choices: be big and watery and bloated, or be lean and muscular but a little skinny. And we could look at all of the Aboriginal peoples of the world. We could look at all tribal peoples of the world. They're all muscular, but it's a skinny muscular. None of them are pumped up. None of them have big muscles. None of them have any bloat whatsoever. So they're always lean and muscular because that's the body's natural set point. That's what the body wants to be. The body does not want to carry extra muscle because it needs extra calories and extra oxygen to feed those muscles. So in a natural setting, there's no such thing as a bodybuilder. So what can a bodybuilder in the modern world who doesn't live out in the jungle or out in the forest, what can a bodybuilder in the modern world do to get the best of both worlds, to build muscle, to be bigger than they should, but also focus on eating a natural diet instead of eating a toxic modern diet? This is where carbohydrates can come in the form of refeeds in the style of Vince Gironda. Vince Gironda, again, would eat steak and eggs. And every 3 to 5 days, Vince Gironda would have a carbohydrate refeed. He would pump up the glycogen in his muscles and get a better pump in his muscles. And then he would go back to steak and eggs for the next 3 to 5 days. So this is exactly what I do today. I call it 90-10 carnivore sin. I eat 90% of my meals carnivore, 10% of my meals carbohydrates. It's the exact same thing as Vince Gironda's steak and eggs diet with the carbohydrate refeed every 3 to 5 days. So if you are a bodybuilder, cheat meals are going to play a role. They're definitely going to play a role. Carbohydrate meals are definitely going to play a role. So if you are eating carnivore and you're going to the gym and trying to pump up, you're going to want to add in some carbohydrate refeeds probably once every 3 to 5 days. In addition to that, Larry Scott advocated you could have up to, but no more than 50 grams of carbohydrates per day. And this is natural sources like walnuts or cashews maybe, or some vegetables or some fruits. But you got to be very, very careful with fruits. It's very easy to get fat on fruits. Basically, no bodybuilder eats fruits. So keep that in mind. Now, regarding pumps on the carnivore diet, gym pumps, I have heard people say that it's hard to get gym pumps on the carnivore diet. There's a very good reason for that. We need to pay more attention to our electrolytes, to our magnesium, potassium, and sodium. It's going to be these things, these electrolytes that are going to help us get a pump in the gym. If we're not paying attention to those, it can be easy to lose the pump. It can be easy to not get a good pump. We will talk more about that in the future. I believe at Red Supplements, we are in the research and development stage right now at Red Supplements to develop some sort of non-stimulant pre-workout supplement that's going to give you the right electrolyte balance to give you a good pump. It's not going to be pumped full of caffeine to make you wired. It's going to be designed to give you the right potassium, magnesium, sodium, things like this. So we're not going to get into that too much right now. In the meantime, before that comes out, I want you to look up the recipe for snake juice. And snake juice is from the Snake Diet channel on YouTube. Snake juice is exactly what I talked about. It's a saltwater drink with potassium and baking soda. And for me, I find it very, very good because I eat just one meal a day and I find it very easy. It's so very easy to eat one meal a day when you are balancing your electrolytes. It is beyond easy to fast for 23 hours. I can even fast for 48 hours drinking snake juice. It's no problem whatsoever. It's actually very easy. Speaking of one meal a day and bodybuilding, is there any way that you can marry the two? Is there any way that you could eat one meal a day and still be a bodybuilder? There is a way, and we've got to look at a bodybuilder from the past called Serge Nubret. Serge Nubret was one of the best bodybuilders who ever lived. Serge Nubret came in second place in 1975 Mr. Olympia to Arnold Schwarzenegger. Some say he could have won. That's neither here nor there. The point is, Serge Nubret had an unbelievable physique, and Serge Nubret was famous for eating one meal a day, sometimes 2 meals a day. So I often wonder, let me back up a little bit. I eat the carnivore diet not for bodybuilding reasons. I eat the carnivore diet because I feel it is the most natural and I feel the best on it. I eat it specifically for 3 reasons. The cognitive benefits on the carnivore diet are insane. You'll have no idea how much brain fog you live in until you don't have brain fog anymore. So number 1 for me is the elimination of brain fog. Number 2, steady energy. Steady energy. A big problem of consuming carbohydrates is that our energy is up and down, up and down, up and down. The more carbs you eat, the less energy you have. It seems like a paradox, but it is not. It seems like carbohydrates are units of energy. So the more units of energy you get, the more energy you will have. But that has absolutely not been my experience. The more carbs I eat, the less energy I have. And the less carbs I eat, the more energy I have. And it's steady energy. I'm always steady. Always steady. In the past, I would have to lay down by noon or 2 o'clock in the afternoon and just be done for the day. Now, I couldn't even imagine. I couldn't imagine laying down. Couldn't imagine laying down during the day. So, number 1, elimination of brain fog, enhancement of cognitive abilities. Number 2, steady energy. And number 3, no bloat. The worst thing for a bodybuilder eating carbohydrates is the bloat. You always get bloated. Now, I don't have a body type that easily puts on fat, so I'm not worried about getting fat by eating carbs. What I don't like is the constant water weight, the constant bloat. I've always felt terribly bloated eating carbs, and when I cut the carbs out of my system, that nasty, disgusting bloat just went away. And good riddance. Feeling bloated is terrible. However, there does seem to be a way that you can mitigate the bloat and also eat carbohydrates if you are so inclined. What way is that? That way is called eating one meal a day. This is what Serge Nubret would do. Serge Nubret would wake up in the morning and he would train for about 3 to 5 hours a day. That's a lot of training. I'm not saying you need to train that much. That's what he would do. Then for his evening meal, he would go home and he would eat lean red meat and rice and beans. He would not eat any fat. Now, on the carnivore diet, as you know, you've got to eat fat to sustain yourself because you cannot eat no carb and no fat because you will feel like you want to die. You must eat carbs or you must eat fat. You cannot cut both from your diet. Now, Serge cut out fat from his diet and he would eat lean red meat. Actually, he would eat horse meat and he would eat up to 6 pounds of horse meat a day or 2 to 3 kilograms of horse meat a day and a little rice and beans. He did mention that he was very careful about his carbohydrate intake. He would eat just enough carbs to be able to train for those 3 hours a day, and he would not eat more. He was very aware of the fact that the more carbs you eat, the more bloated and the more fat you're going to gain. So even though he ate one meal a day and it was a very big meal, he probably did not eat more than 100 grams of carbs in that meal. So if you are a bodybuilder looking for a way to stay lean naturally and you're not wanting to cut out the carbs from your diet for reasons of getting a pump or for reasons of strength in the gym or for whatever the case may be, take a look at the style of the Serge Nubret diet. That's one meal a day, big amounts of lean meat and low to moderate amounts of carbohydrates and only rice and beans. Serge did not eat vegetables. He did not eat fruit. He ate rice and beans and lean meat pretty much every day. Now, if you look at pictures of Serge Nubret, you will see, obviously he's got great genetics. So that's obvious. But you will see that his diet obviously worked very well for him. So in this game of bodybuilding, you must have knowledge of yourself. You must practice on yourself. You must do what works for you. And again, bodybuilding is not about having a natural body. It's not about being your natural self. It's about being more than natural. It's about being bigger than you should be naturally. So because it is about being bigger than you should be naturally, there are certain things you must do to get bigger than you naturally should be. If we were all just having a natural body, we would all be muscular, but a little bit lean and skinny, like all the tribal peoples in New Guinea, in Australia, off the coast of India. We would look like these people. We would be lean and muscular and strong, but a little bit skinny. We would not be big and bloated and bloofy like we see bodybuilders today. So if you are a bodybuilder who wants to eat as naturally as you possibly can, but also be bigger than you should be. Eat a lot of meat, add in heavy cream. Now for bodybuilders gaining muscle, I do not recommend you eat 1 meal a day. I recommend you eat 3 meals a day because again, it is very, very difficult to eat enough meat in one sitting to have the amount of calories that you need to go train hard and heavy and to build extra size. So I recommend 3 meals a day for the carnivore bodybuilders, and I recommend you drink heavy cream in addition to your 3 meals a day. And you could also eat things like cottage cheese. You could eat a handful of walnuts here and there. You could drink a little bit of honey, raw honey with your raw cream. And I'm very interested in what would happen if I were to eat 1 meal a day that had carbs and protein in it. So I may try this experiment in the future. I might do this for 1 week, eat just 1 meal a day of, say, rice and chicken or rice and meat, whatever, and, experiment on my own body and see what happens. Because it seems to me that on the 1 meal a day, because you wait so long to eat, you are able to eliminate the bloat from the carbs. You might be able to eliminate the brain fog from the carbohydrates. I couldn't tell you because I've not eaten carbohydrates more than 1 day in a row in a long time, but it's a very interesting experiment to try. It is very interesting to think about. Going a little bit off topic here and speaking about natural people, it seems to me a little bit like white people are not natural in this world. And what I mean by that is, why are there no white tribal peoples anywhere in the world? There are none. We can only look to the past. We can only look to the Neanderthals. We can only look to prehistory and bones to see how our ancestors lived. We cannot find any white people today who live a natural lifestyle. All white people today live in civilization. There are no white people anywhere in the world who live a tribal lifestyle anymore. If we want to see tribal people, we have to look at brown or black people in the jungle. So this is very interesting for me to think about. And I've heard theories before that, in fact, people were made in labs, or white people were made in labs, and that the natural people of the earth are the tribal peoples like the black and the brown peoples, and the white people were made in labs by exchanging half alien DNA with the DNA of Earthman. So who knows if this is true, but it's a fun thought experiment. And who's the fella? Elijah Muhammad? No, Louis Farrakhan. Louis Farrakhan is a black nationalist. He believes that white people were made in a laboratory. That's what their religion preaches. I believe it's the Nation of Islam. They say that the white man was created and that he's not natural to earth. And this kind of it doesn't seem that far-fetched to me. When you read the actual theory, it's dumb. It doesn't make any sense. But it's really not that far-fetched to think that white people might have been created in one manner or another because we don't fit in the natural world. There are no white people who live a natural lifestyle. Most white people don't understand nature at all anymore. We don't have any clue about nature. I'm of course talking about United States whites, Canadian whites. In Eastern Europe, that's a different story. They still live a little bit closer to how Mother Nature wanted them to live. But in our world, our modern world, nature to us is like, ugh, it's icky, ugh. And we don't have any people. We don't have any natural peoples to look at. So we're a little bit in the dark. We've got to rely on our own instinct and intuition. And just looking at it, it does not seem like we're natural in this world because white people don't live in harmony with nature. We live antagonistic to nature. The people in the jungle, they live off the land. They live with the land. And the people in the jungle, they live in the jungle because they cannot plan for tomorrow. Anybody that can plan for tomorrow builds a civilization. They build a society. But if you cannot plan for tomorrow, you live day by day in the jungle. The only thing you think about is your next meal. You don't think about 2 meals from now or 3 meals from now. Jungle peoples only think about their next meal, and that's that. They don't think past that whatsoever. And after they eat their meal, they don't even think about food again until they're hungry. So these people don't belong in our world and we don't belong in their world. When we try to civilize these people always live in fourth world poverty. They live at the lowest of the low and they always become alcoholics because they don't belong in our world, because our world requires that you think about tomorrow. You think about the future. But if people who don't have the ability to think about the future, they don't belong in our world. They belong in the jungle. That's their natural habitat. But for us, we think about tomorrow. We're always planning. We're always dreaming about the future. We don't really belong in that world. We don't belong out in the jungle just thinking about the next meal. We're thinking about a meal a year down the line. We're thinking about keeping beef jerky so we can eat something tomorrow and the next day. I was reading a story about somebody who would go and visit some of these tribes, and they would bring peanut butter to the tribes because the tribes like modern peanut butter. And when they would bring them a jar of peanut butter, the tribe would sit down and they would eat all the jar of peanut butter until it was empty. They would eat past the point of being full. They would not stop eating until the peanut butter was done. And he would say, why don't you just save the peanut butter for tomorrow or the next day? And their answer was simple. They would say, the jungle will provide. So to them, anytime they got food, they would eat it all until it was gone. They would never save it. They would never think about tomorrow because they know the jungle will provide. And to us, in the modern world, we like to save food. We like to have food for tomorrow and the next day. We like to have a pantry full of food so that we know we're going to be good in a week from now. So it really does seem like the two worlds just don't mix. It seems like modern peoples of the world and tribal peoples of the world, there might even be two different stock. They might be, one of us might not be natural to this planet. Now, I don't know if this is true. I'm just talking out of my ass here. I'm just talking to have fun and give you a thought experiment. But what if white people are not natural to this world? What if it is a mix of DNA? We've got stories of the Nephilim coming down from space or wherever and mixing DNA and mixing with the daughters of man and building a new race. So it's a fun thought experiment. It's fun to wonder because our history, we don't understand our history anymore. We don't know where in the hell we came from. How is it that we don't know where in the hell we came from? If you go to a tribal society that cannot read and write, I guarantee you they know where they came from. They remember it. They tell it, mother tells son, daughter, continually for thousands and thousands of years. They understand and they know their history. Our history has been erased, or was it never there to begin with? To be honest, I really don't know. Why in the hell can't we remember who we are? Are we natural to this planet? Were we created? What does religion say? Well, religion says we were created. So that settles that. Our religion, Christianity, it says we were created. And in fact, if you understand how to read the Bible is not meant to be taken literally. There are many layers to the Bible like there are layers to an onion. And if you read the Bible literally, you're not going to get the story. You're not going to get the real story. If we're talking about creation of man, where does that start? Where does the creation start? If they say that white man was created in a laboratory and is not natural to the earth, and then the Holy Bible says God created man, what's the difference? Is that not the same thing? And if we look at the Holy Bible, Book 1, the book of Genesis, what are the first letters of Genesis? G-E-N-E. Gene. Genes. Genesis. The genes of Isis. That's what the book of Genesis is, the genes of Isis. Isis is the mother goddess. And in fact, I don't know if you've noticed, but she's still around today, and there are still sacrifices being made to Isis today. But going back to the book of Genesis, what happened in the book of Genesis? Adam and Eve were created. And how was Eve created? Eve was created by Adam's rib. So Adam was one, and then he became two. Well, friends, this is called nuclear fission. In nuclear fission, you take one atom, one atom, Adam and Eve. You take one atom, you split that in two. That is called nuclear fission. So in the Holy Bible, in the book of Genesis, we have the story of Adam and Eve, a splitting of the atom. That sounds to me like it is a story of a creation in a laboratory. What in the hell does that have to do with anything? I don't know, but it's a fun story. And oh my goodness, it has been over 30 minutes of talking a bunch of bullshit. Let's answer some questions, all right? Matt asks, Victor, today marks day 26 of my strict carnivore diet eating plan. I haven't eaten anything but protein and occasional cheese sticks. Been taking the rest of my red PCT along with red burner for the last 2 weeks. With the diet and supplement, I've lost 18 pounds. I've been hitting the gym as hard as I can 3 days a week, mainly doing compound lifts. I've noticed I'm getting very exhausted after the gym. Also, my pumps aren't as intense. I'm afraid I might be losing muscle. His questions are, how do you prevent muscle loss on carnivore diet? Number 2, will red growth help? Number 3, how do I know if my body is using muscle or fat for energy? Okay, on the carnivore diet, you're definitely going to experience weight loss at the very beginning, especially because he's taking a fat burner called red burner. But on the carnivore diet, you are going to experience weight loss in the first probably 2 weeks for sure. Most of it is going to be water. So we don't have to worry about losing lean muscle tissue in the first couple of weeks, because if you're feeding your body enough lean muscle tissue via animal protein, it is not going to need to break down your own body's protein to replenish itself. What is being lost is water weight. Water weight. So a reason that this young man might be losing pumps is because he's losing the water. Therefore, he is losing the electrolytes. So we want to first look at electrolyte supplementation to combat this. Until the body reaches homeostasis, we can look at adding some potassium, magnesium, sodium into the diet to build up the electrolyte balance, to make the electrolyte balance correct and get a good pump. Also, he says, will red growth help? Red growth will help like you cannot believe. Red growth is the strongest non-steroid supplement that I've ever used in my life. To me, red growth feels a lot like the steroid called Turinabol, which if you follow the UFC, you know that John Jones popped 4 picograms of Turinabol. To me, that's exactly what red growth feels like. So red growth will help with pumps like you can't believe. It will give you definition like you can't believe. It will give you more strength than you can believe. And also, if you are concerned about losing too much weight too quickly, probably should not be taking a fat burner. And if you're getting exhausted after the gym, taking a fat burner, changing to a new diet, you need to be a little bit more patient. So for this young man, I would take out the fat burner. I would add in red growth. I would add in some potassium, magnesium, some sodium. And if you go to your local supermarket, you can buy something called no salt, which is a salt alternative. And it's just potassium. You can sprinkle that onto your food when you eat it, and that's how you can get your potassium in. His third question, how do I know if my body is using muscle or fat for energy? Well, generally, if you're eating enough protein, if you're eating enough animal protein, why would your body need to break down your own protein to feed itself? So make sure you're eating enough. You might not be eating enough. If you're working out real hard and you're changing to a new diet that is going to be lower in calorie, you might not be eating enough. So even though your plan is to lose weight, you might need to increase the amount of protein that you are eating so that your body does not want to eat its own muscles. It wants to eat the muscles that you ate. So eat a little bit more, stop taking red burner, start taking red growth, and see what happens. You know what I'm going to do, friends? I'm going to make this a bonus episode. I'm not going to answer too many questions. I'm not going to cover the questions I said I was going to cover last time. This is just going to be a bonus episode because we've already spent so much time talking about the genes of Isis. We've spent so much time talking about the natural human diet that I just don't feel like talking about that other stuff. I want to talk about some fun stuff. So I'm going to go through one more topic, and it's a topic that, you know, I talk about it a lot, but ye ask and ye shall receive. So here it is. Anonymous sent me this email. And let me preface this by saying, if you're not on the Bold and Determined email list, you need to be, because every Friday I send out an email called 5-Star Friday. And in 5-Star Friday, I send out articles that I'm reading. I send out podcasts that I'm listening to. I send out videos that I'm watching. I send out recipes for food that I'm eating. I send out my favorite quote of the week. So it's a very fun email that I send out every single Friday. Last Friday, I sent out an email that included a video by Owen Benjamin, who I believe has the best YouTube channel right now. He does live streams 3 or 4 hours basically every single day. So it's a great way to get great content, and you don't have to watch television. You don't have to listen to radio. You don't have to do anything with mainstream media these days, because people like Owen Benjamin and also Roosh is doing the same thing. They're doing live streams, several hour-long live streams. So I like to turn these things on and do push-ups in my house or go cook in the kitchen or do whatever. But I like to, this is how I like to get my entertainment these days, by people who are not part of the mainstream, because the mainstream, it's always a lie. It's fake news. So I like to watch real people talking about real things. Just like you're listening to me on this podcast talking about real things, I like to do the same thing. And right now, my favorite is Owen Benjamin. So I sent out a link to an Owen Benjamin video called The War on Beauty. Here's what Anonymous sent to me. I've been watching that YouTube video you sent out about the war on beauty. It's so true. We have more art and entertainment today than in the entire history of mankind. But the large majority of it is just mass-produced garbage. Even more sinister than garbage, it is intentionally made to drain hope, inspiration, beauty, and uplifting ideas from the people. There is no good music. There is no good art. There's no good books. The other day, I was seriously trying to remember the last time I read a book or an article that I would consider art, other than B&D, of course. Everything is regurgitated, informational, sound bites. Everything is 240 character limit Twitter thoughts. Everyone has an opinion about everything that is a mile wide and an inch deep. Where did all of the deep thinkers go? Where is all of the art? Where is the writing that's so good that when you read it, it punches you in the gut? The words that grab your attention so deeply you cannot stop thinking about it for days. I remember when I was younger, I could sit and read books for hours on end, spend entire days in my living room reading. I cannot remember the last time I did that. I realize that this is my fault. I've let myself get consumed by the social media addicted instant gratification inch deep culture. It felt very different when I was in Asia. Being back in America for 8 months now, I feel myself going a little crazy. I took a trip to the Dominican Republic a few weeks ago just to get away from the cold and get some sun. People there reminded me of people in Vietnam, so happy and carefree. You actually saw children running around and playing in the streets. Is America just doomed? Is there any way to help people in America see that they are all walking down a dark path to destruction? Or is it just an inevitability that all things must fall? Ooh, there are so many questions to answer there. And this email that I got is really at the heart of everything I do on the B&D podcast. Now, if you are a reader of the Bold and Determined blog, you know that the blog is a little bit different than the podcast. On the blog, my goal is there to punch you in the gut and to motivate you to get out and make something of your life. The podcast is a bit different. The podcast is focused on the reality of the world we live in. It's not focused really so much on motivating you, though if it does motivate you, that's great. I love it. But that's not really the goal. The goal is to just be here and talk to you like a person. Be here and just talk to you about truth, because in our world, truth is not so abundant. And especially when I'm in America, it's so difficult to find somebody who will tell the truth. I find that they all tell lies, and there's a couple different reasons why they would tell lies. Number one, they're afraid to tell the truth. Yes, most people are deathly afraid to tell the truth. Because America, regardless of what you see on television, America lives in a state of fear. A state of fear. And I've told you before, America has the best advertising in the history of the world. So when people abroad think about America, they only think about what they saw on television. They don't understand the dark reality of actually living there. They don't understand what it's actually like. And what it's actually like is like being a frog in a boiling pot. And it gets hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. But it happens so slowly. A lot of frogs don't realize what's going on until it's too late. And actually, most people don't realize it until they jump out of the boiling pot and they go to another country and they're like, what the fuck? I feel more free in China than I felt in America. I feel more free in Vietnam than I felt in America. What is going on? What's happening? Why is everything in America so ugly now? Why was America so great in the past? Why was it such a self-reliant, entrepreneurial country? And now it's degenerating. It's becoming socialist. It's becoming ugly. That's what's happening. It's becoming ugly. Why is it becoming ugly? Is it inevitable? Or, as Owen Benjamin titled his video, The War on Beauty, is there actually a war going on that we cannot see, smell, taste, or touch, but actually, we feel it. We feel it. The soul can feel it. And why is it that when you go to another country, your stress melts. You feel like you can breathe. But when you set foot on American soil, you get tense. You tense up. You get paranoid. You feel like you're going crazy. And then when you leave, you can breathe again. What is it that's going on? Is it really a war that is being waged on the people? And why is it that there are literally no good movies, no good music, no good television shows, no good books? Like our reader said, it is even more sinister than garbage. Is it intentionally made to drain hope, to drain inspiration, to drain beauty and uplifting ideas from the people? Could it be? Let's take a look at the recent past. Why are the apartment buildings in the Soviet Union so ugly? In the communist Soviet Union, why was the architecture so drab and so ugly? Could it be that it was designed that way to drain hope from the people? Could it be that in all socialistic, communistic societies, everything is intentionally ugly just to drain hope from the people? Is this where the United States is headed? How could it be They're a nation of people who are so talented, who built and created and invented all the great things in the world, who had at one time the greatest spirit in the world. How could it be that a country of 300 million of these people, there's no good music, there's no good television, there's no good movies? How could this be? Where did all of the deep thinkers go? Where's all the art? Where's the writing that punches you in the gut when you read it? I'll tell you where. Everybody has let themselves be consumed by the social media addiction, instant gratification, inch-deep culture. People have given away their talents just to be part of the hive mind of the social media landscape. They were consumed by it. I wrote an article called Why I Don't Use Social Media. In the article, I explained that in the past, even just 5 years ago, there were so many great blogs in the world. Today, there are precious few great blogs in the world. I could count on one hand. I probably don't even need 5 fingers to count the amount of great blogs that exist in the world today. They just disappeared into social media addiction. And this really has nothing to do with the war on beauty that we were discussing. This really has nothing to do with anything we were discussing, but it is a reality. They all disappeared into social media addiction. They're all gone. They just disappeared. They're all part of the hive mind of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Instead of bringing their art to the world, they let themselves be consumed by social media addiction. They let themselves be carried away by instant gratification. They have no more patience. If they have an idea, they want to express it right now. Right now. I've got to express it right now. No, I can't wait till tomorrow. No, I can't even wait until next week. I've got to express it right now. And that's what happened. You have to let ideas marinate and simmer before you bring them to the world. That is how you create art. That's how you create art. If you want to create a fart, you just fart it out whenever you think it. Here's an idea. There's an idea. That's why you get nothing but shit in the social media addicted culture. Because nobody takes the time to let the ideas brew and simmer to a perfection before being served. Instead, they just, here it is. There it is. Here's my opinion. That's the current world of art. And that is why I don't use social media. Because it turns what was once beauty into nothing but ugliness. And friends, I've said it 1,000 times, and I'm not even above it. I'm fully in the grips of my smartphone addiction. But it is the smartphone that was the biggest killer of our creativity. It absolutely was. It was the smartphone. We can blame social media. We can blame the government. We can blame the Jews. We could blame all kinds of things. But actually, the blame is resting in our own hands. Right now, the blame is in our own hands because we can't give up the smartphone. That's the reality. If we just had computers and no smartphones, this would not have happened because you cannot be on your computer when you're walking down the street or driving down the street. But on your smartphone, you can be, and everybody is. So actually, it's our own fault. There's nobody to blame but us, ourselves, for allowing ourselves to be addicted to this little device. And of course, they've purposely made it as addictive as humanly possible. They have the world's greatest scientists, the world's greatest researchers. Do you know why art sucks today? Do you know why everything sucks today? Because all of the greatest minds in the world are in Silicon Valley trying to make your smartphone more addictive. That's where they are. They're not in other industries creating new things. They're working on your smartphone trying to get your app more addictive. They're trying to get you to spend more time on the apps. All the greatest minds in the world are working together to get you more addicted to your phone. The best thing you can do is to throw your smartphone in the river and don't look back. That might make me a hypocrite, but it doesn't make me wrong. I have my smartphone right here. I use it every day. You know why? They've made it so necessary that I can't get away from using it. I use it for the Translate app. I'm in Georgia right now recording this. I don't speak Georgian, and that's the country of Georgia, not the state of Georgia. I'm in the country of Georgia. I don't speak Georgian. I don't speak Russian. When I tell them I want 12 eggs or whatever I want, I use the Translate app. When I want to get a taxi, because I can't speak to the taxi drivers, I use the taxi app. And also the taxi app saves me a lot of damn money. That's the crazy thing. They've made the smartphone so useful. So useful. That's how they get you addicted. It's so useful. Life would be harder without it. Even though life would be better in many ways, life would also be harder in many ways. I would have to spend more money on taxis for sure. I use the taxi app. It gives me a price right away. If I go to a taxi driver, they up the price. They'll tell you a price and you've got to negotiate with them. And how do you negotiate with somebody who doesn't speak your language? You end up having to pay more to get a regular taxi than you would to use the app. So that's how they undercut the market. They give you a better deal and they make it easier. So understanding that you get a better deal, it's easier, it's cheaper to use your smartphone. How are you going to walk away from your smartphone? How are you going to get a map in today's world when they don't print maps anymore? Where are you going to get a map to understand where to go? We have to rely on Google Maps today. How are we going to get somewhere if we don't know how to get there? They've made it so we almost need smartphones today. Of course, if you know where you live, if you know directions where you live, of course you don't need a smartphone. But for someone in my case, a traveler, yeah, you need a smartphone. Oh, so that's that, friends. Being killed by convenience. That's what it is. Everything is so convenient now. Why create art? Why create art? Everything is so convenient. But, that does not explain why is it you feel like you're going crazy in America then when you go to Thailand, Vietnam, Georgia, Ukraine? Why do you feel like you can finally relax? What's going on there? Why do you not see children in the United States? You don't see children running around in the United States. You just don't see them anymore. Where are the children? In Thailand, you can't throw a rock without hitting a child running around with a smile. In America, you can't throw a rock and hit a person. You don't see people out on the street. You see them driving in cars. And I noticed that when I was in Albuquerque, I started paying attention to the driver of every car because there's cars everywhere. And I would look in the cars and always I would see one person in the car. Always one person in the car. Very rarely it was two people in a car. Usually for every single car was one person. In America, everybody's so isolated that even in the family car, it's just one person. We're so isolated that to get from point A to point B, we cannot walk there. We've got to put ourselves inside four walls and drive there. It's the most isolating country that I've ever been to. The most secluded, the loneliest country that I've ever been to, the United States. That being said, I do love driving, so I'm not placing any blame on cars, but I am asking questions. Why is it that there's no ability to walk in cities in the United States? Now, of course, USA is a gigantic country with so much open land that, of course, you don't need to walk outside of the city. But inside the city, it is not meant for you to walk. It is meant specifically for you to drive a car. You cannot get around in the United States without a car. You cannot. Unless you live in New York City and never leave. You cannot get around without having a car in the United States. Everywhere else in the world, you can walk. You can take a bus. You can take a subway. You can take a SkyTrain. In America, you've got to have a car. Got to. He said in his email, the people in Vietnam are so happy and carefree. You actually saw children running around and playing in the streets. Yes, you never see that in the United States. You never see anybody with joy in the United States. The joy has been taken from them. And I'll tell you what, friends, people in the rest of the world have smartphones too. People in the rest of the world are addicted to their smartphones too. More people in Thailand use smartphones than in the United States, but they still have joy. They still smile. Where is the joy in the United States? What is happening to our people in the United States that there is no joy? There are no smiles. There are no children. What is going on? Is it really a war? Is it really a war? Is America just doomed? Is there any way to help the people in America see they are walking down a dark path to destruction? You know, we've covered this topic many times on the B&D podcast, and I've told you many times that Americans are suicidal. They are suicidal. They are pathologically altruistic. They want to help people that are not of their own at the expense of their own. They want to help other people at the expense of themselves. They want to help other people live so that they themselves may die. And that is what I see in the United States. And I wish I had a better, brighter message for you. But I told you on this podcast, I have to bring you the truth. I cannot lie. I wish I could lie. I wish I could just lie and take your money, but I can't. I've got to tell you the truth. I get physically sick if I try to lie. I can't do it. I don't see anything nice in the future of America. I don't see it going down a nice path. I see it going down a dark path. And people say, well, Donald Trump, he's going to save us, right? Donald Trump. Listen, even if Donald Trump wanted to, and I personally believe that Donald Trump is a fairly honest man. I believe him when he speaks. But this is much bigger than one man. One man cannot change this system because this system was infected by many people who are trying to bring about the destruction of a once great country. So let's assume that Donald Trump is sincere, that he wants to make America great again. That's great. I support him in that endeavor. I even believe him when he speaks. Is he enough? Well, if nobody in the country is willing to do what it takes, then the work of one man and his team, how is that possibly going to be enough? If the Americans stay in the pot of boiling water, what good is somebody outside of the pot going to do? If they are ready and willing to boil in the pot so that others may eat them, what's the difference what other people do? Is America just doomed? Well, what other future is there? What other future is there? That doesn't mean America is going to fall off the face of the earth. Civilizations have risen and then they fall. Happened to every civilization in the history of the world. Russia fell, the Soviet Union fell. Did Russia fall off the face of the earth? No, they had dark times for a little while. Now they're crawling out of the dark times. The English Empire fell. Did England go away? No, England is still here. The Roman Empire fell. Did Rome go away? No, Rome is still here. The Greek Empire fell. Did Greece go away? No, Greece is still here. So even in the face of annihilation, destruction. Listen, annihilation happened in the Soviet Union, happened in Germany, happened in China, happened in Cambodia, happened in Armenia, happened in Rwanda, happening in South Africa. These countries are still here. These people are still here. So the people are still going to be here. Even if 30, 40, 50, 60 million of them are killed, the people are still here. So is America doomed? Yeah. Is it going to go anywhere? No. What's going to happen? I understand this episode was not the most uplifting or not the most spiriting. And like I said, I just got to bring you the truth. So that's that. Have a nice day.